Welcome to the One Stiletto in the Grave podcast with your hosts, Sonny Ormond and Jane James.
Well, hello everyone. Today we're chatting about Ambridge storyline surprises, drama school days, West End debuts, Mamma Mia! And can you think in two languages at the same time? Well, let's ask our gorgeous guest today, the actress who plays Chelsea Horrobin, aka Madeleine Leslay. Well, welcome, Maddie. It is brilliant to have you here today. Now, unfortunately, it's really lovely. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, no, it's great. But unfortunately, lovely listeners, Janie isn't with us today because she's come down with a horrid lurgy and therefore unable to join us.
No.
So it's just, I know. So it's just me and Maddie. But I have got a lot of questions for you from Janie. Maddie, so
bring it. I'm
bring
ready.
it on. She may not be here in person, but she certainly is in spirit. So get well soon, dear Janie, and I'm going to try and do my best without you. Now, Maddie, I think it's fair to say that since your arrival in the Archers as 17-year-old Chelsea Horrobin in 2021, that you take the programme and the listeners by storm. You really have. And you may know you have made a huge impact. And of course, you've recently been involved in this very emotional storyline, the pregnancy storyline. And for anyone who isn't a regular Archers listeners, can you tell us a little bit about Chelsea as a character and the recent storyline?
Yeah, so Chelsea is your sort of modern day teenager, I'd say. Yeah, typical. She's now 18, actually. I think she had a birthday in September. She's at college. She is incredibly passionate about hairdressing and beauty. That's her thing. I think that's what makes her tick. And she, just sort of has bumbled about her life. With her friends and her passions. And then suddenly this, from a small event, from going to a rave that all the young people of Ambridge and the local area probably went to, there was this incident with Ben. They slept together, and then she found out that she was pregnant. And it was a huge shock to her. I think it really stopped her in her tracks, and it was like, a huge juggernaut that just sort of ran her over. And it's about, a young woman having to make a very, very big decision for her, and only she could make it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, no, it is,
and
also as the storyline went, because she wasn't sure what she should be doing or not doing, it was a termination in the end, but it was a late termination, wasn't it? Which added to, I would imagine, the emotional storm of it all. And how much advance warning, Maddie, were you given about this storyline?
So I didn't know how the storyline was going to end, but I was told maybe a couple of months before that I got a phone call from Jeremy basically saying, Chelsea, you might notice that she's acting not herself. You might think that she's acting a bit erratically, angry, not her usual sort of bubbly self. And that is because she's pregnant. And so I was told that because I think if I wasn't, I would have read the scripts and gone, oh, hang on a minute, this doesn't sound like her usual self. She's had a bit of something must have happened. So I'm really glad that I was told that. But I remember going, oh, but Jeremy, who's the father? It was my first question. And he was like, I'm not telling you. So I didn't actually know that for a while until it came to when we got the scripts for recording.
Right, that's interesting. And Jeremy, by the way, is our editor, isn't he? For anyone out there,
I should have said.
No, it's absolutely fine. Jeremy is our editor. He is the king of the program in many ways, isn't he?
So he's king of the Archers.
That's right. So that is very interesting. I wonder why he didn't tell you who the father was. Because you weren't about to spill those beans to anybody, were you? I wonder why. It was
No.
quite interesting, actually.
It was, yeah, it is interesting, but it certainly added to, I guess maybe at that point I didn't need to know um, who it was necessarily, because I think for me, the main thing for Chelsea was that she was just in complete denial through the whole thing. And I think that really um, sort of made sense of why potentially it was a late termination and that she just kept running away. But I mean, also there were other people that the father could have been. It was so cleverly written by the writers and the team. And so I'm quite glad I didn't know, but I have to say that when they did tell me, it was the last person I expected it to be. I mean, I don't know what you thought
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
who it
I
might be,
think
but
I think you're right. I think us and the rest of the listeners, I think, well, Ben Archer. Oh
I know.
wow. And of course there was yes, you had a wonderful scene with Blake, didn't you? Blake suddenly, and I thought,
Oh,
could it be Blake re-emerging? That was a bit of a red herring that came up as well.
it
Yeah.
was, yes. I love recording with everybody, but I specifically love the relationship that Chelsea has with Blake. I think I was so chuffed when I saw that we had some more scenes together and they had kept their friendship. Um,
I think
yeah,
that will be. I mean, I liked. I thought he was excellent as well as Blake.
he's
He's
wonderful.
brilliant. And I, like you, as a listener, observe. I think I would love that relationship to develop, not necessarily into a sexual relationship or anything like that, but it's a special. It's a
Yes.
very gentle friendship, and it's an aspect of Chelsea that and also of Blake actually, they bring out in each other that we don't see in any other way. It's
Yeah.
rather touching. So fingers crossed that if
Fingers
Jeremy's listening, that he
crossed.
might think. I don't know,
Yes,
but
please.
that would be nice. But that was a red herring, wasn't it? That was a red
It
herring
was, yeah.
when Blake came out.
Similar to with the whole situation with Russ, because for a while we
Yes,
thought it was him
yes,
that could have been the father.
yeah,
But it's so fascinating because Jeremy uses this amazing analogy where it's like you throw a pebble in some water and then you watch the ripples go out. And this story was very much, Ben and Chelsea were the kind of rock or the stone going into the river or the brook, and then it's the actual story is about all the ripples and how it affects
yes.
everyone around them and the drama that ensues.
Indeed. Oh, you're so right. The shot. I was thinking about that. Listening this week. The shock waves, the repercussions. I mean, already we've got the issues with Ben and his grandma Jill.
Huge, yeah,
And the shock waves, I think, will go on for a very, very, very long time in different ways.
agreed.
And what's happening. Certainly with Ruth and with David as a result of all this. There's all sorts of lava that's coming up from the volcano,
Yes,
isn't there?
it's
Because of
huge.
it all. It's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
But you say that at the time when you were told that this was happening, you didn't know who the father was, but you didn't also know the outcome. Was that because do you think the production office was still thinking about what the outcome would be, or maybe you don't know?
Perhaps. I mean, I
Mm,
would love to be a fly on the wall when they
mm,
sort of work out the storylines, but I know that they were sort of trying to think through every eventuality. So, what would it be like if she had the baby? What would it be like if she was a single parent? Should she get together with Ben, or would she have a termination?
mm,
Would Tracy and Jazza maybe raise the baby? I don't know. There's so many
mm,
different scenarios, and I know that
mm,
they really looked into what would happen with each one. But I think also it happened at the same time as everything erupted in America,
mm,
and I think that was probably taken into consideration, and also just Chelsea herself, like a young woman at her age. Not, I mean, I she probably could have, but really, was she ready to be a mother?
mm, mm,
Um,
mm,
what is the best thing to do? And we're lucky that we live somewhere where we have a choice,
mm,
and
mm,
it's not as we know, it's not an easy one, and this is
mm.
a topic that touches a lot of our lives. We either
Absolutely.
are that person, the partner of that person, or friends and family of that person.
Mm, mm,
And it's, yeah, I know that there must have been a lot of thought and
mm.
know there was a lot of care that went into
And I think it was
writing it.
explored really well in The Archers, because you as a character, you did investigate, didn't you? You spoke to professional people, you spoke to other friends. You got information from all aspects, and I thought that was really good that the show did that. I mean, it wasn't a light decision, and we were informed as a listener in so many different ways. We got everybody's side of the story, and Ben, the repercussions now for Ben. I think
Exactly, yes.
we had an insight into his shattered world. I think it's been really, really well handled. But you both, and Ben, who plays Ben, I thought you played it so beautifully, and
Oh,
great
thank you
applause
so much.
to you both. But as you say, the repercussions, will be huge. How much
Yeah.
research did you do about all this, Maddie? Or maybe you didn't, particularly. I don't know.
I did, and I didn't, because I didn't want to get too bogged down by the facts, because Chelsea doesn't have all the facts. It was more feelings for her, and I just sort of went back in time and imagined what it felt like. That was my main research. Obviously, I did some, like, what would happen at each point if she were to terminate, sort of what that might be like and what that might feel like, because I imagine she was doing a lot of research on the internet. So I was sort of trying to see what does come up when you type it in. Because I'll be honest, I didn't really know, once you are pregnant, where'd you go? I didn't actually really know that. And I certainly didn't know, and I might be very silly for not knowing, but I did not know that the pregnancy was counted from your period rather than when you sleep with someone. So
Yes.
yeah.
I remember that piece of information, and I too, being 108 as I am, I didn't
Stop it,
I
you're
didn't
not
know that
at
either.
all.
No, no. But yes, I mean,
Yeah.
all that sort of thing is really it's such useful information, isn't it?
It really
And
is.
shocking, really, because do you think obviously she's young, as you say now, she's now 18.
Yeah.
Suddenly you have, as a character, because in a way you joined the program in 2021, so you were still exploring who Chelsea was. I mean, I've been playing my character for 22 years and I'm still exploring who
Yes.
Lillian is, really. But you had little time
Mm.
really to find out who she was, and suddenly you had this huge storyline which was heaped on your shoulders. Do you think that this will inform the way that you play Chelsea going forward?
That is such a wonderful question. And I've been thinking about this. I definitely, yeah, because I noticed this actually more in the writing of her, because when I first started, it was very obvious that she spoke very fast, quite long speeches. I'd be like, oh God, I've got to say all this. And then since this storyline, she when the storyline kicked off, she spoke basically one or two words, really short sentences, and as a consequence, I noticed that her breath was more like, her speech was more breathy, more unsure, kind of went up at the ends, and I've really noticed a change in her, and it's amazing to get to know her uh, in this new way, what she is like when she's unsure, because before now she's been very sure, very feisty, very like, you hear her wherever she goes. She's there even when she's not speaking. But then, there were times in this storyline when she'd be in the room and Tracy would turn the light on and had no idea she was there because she was so quiet. I mean, I don't know how you've your experience of this when you've had your storylines, about how when
Yes,
you get new nuggets about how they behave and who they are.
it is interesting that, and because we are lucky, aren't we, to in something like a soap, whether it's radio or whether it's television, we are with our characters. Well, hopefully, unless we get the sack,
Yes,
but we are with our
please,
characters for
no.
a very a very long time, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we don't get that opportunity normally. So you really develop that character. they really eat into your soul, I think, in many ways, and they become very layered as a consequence. But yes, absolutely. Over the years, I've had all sorts of different emotional storylines and so on, and I do know that each story that I've had is a bit like the layering of the onion. It adds another dimension to who I am, and even if when I'm playing Lily and I'm not that conscious of it, I know it's part of my DNA. It's part of that character's DNA, and I think it's interesting. And I think particularly with Chelsea, she is so young, but in a way, this will have made her grow up in such a profound way, won't it? And that will be very interesting to see how it manifests in other situations that she
so
finds
interesting.
herself in.
Because I think as well, she's been, up until this point, some people might say that she has a tendency to be a little bit selfish at times.
Yeah.
And I think that something like this would probably mean that you kind of broaden your horizons of the world, I guess, and I don't know, maybe tune out from just thinking about herself and her immediate, core people to I don't know, a broader understanding emotionally of other people. I think I mean I don't know. I'm so interested to see.
Yes, it's so interesting because I mean, let's face it, as teenagers we are kind of selfish, aren't we? We're just thinking about ourselves, and hopefully as time goes on, physiologically we change and we come to be more aware of others. But she has been yanked screaming into this mature world, of which of course she wasn't probably ready for, and so it'd be very interesting to see how she copes with it emotionally and psychologically. But I think one of the lovely things as well that I enjoyed so much about it listening was the bond with the family, with Jazza, who isn't her real father, but you feel he really is giving her so much, and also with Tracy, Susie, who plays Tracy. I just loved those scenes. I thought you all played them beautifully, and I know as a listener, you see now, I think that's what's interesting about soaps, that when I listen to you guys as a family now, whatever you may be doing, whether you're doing somebody's hair, I know I've got the levels that you operate from. I know there's a wounded side to her. I know there's a little girl to her, even when she's being difficult or whatever, like you do with Tracy. There's a vulnerability there. And that just helps so much, I think, as a listener, because you get a very three-dimensional character as opposed to a one-dimensional character.
Well, I think that's where
it's great.
Oh, thank you. But that is where the writers are just and the directors are just so incredible, because they guide us through. And I think the audiences hear the end result, they hear our voices and our performances, but actually the guidance I certainly receive in the studio to bring out these things, to tease out these things, they're just big up the directors.
Absolutely, the writers and the directors, absolutely. Now this is an interesting one for me anyway. Do you think Maddie Chelsea did the right thing?
Oh yes, it's a controversial question, and automatically I thought, oh gosh, how many people am I going to be upsetting if I say one or the other? But I think, I think she
for
did
her.
For her. And this is what's so important, is that there is no one way. It's such a personal thing, and I think no one has the right to tell someone what they have to do. It is such a personal thing, and I think in this scenario, for her, I believe it was the right thing. And that doesn't mean that she might think about it in the future. It might come back in some way, or maybe it won't. I don't know, but I do,
that's interesting. And I think that's the repercussions of all this, of course, now, and people's people's choices in this is really is in evidence, isn't it, with the storyline that's playing out now between Ben and Jill. that she has made a decision about. But actually, we are really having to focus on that. Well, hang on a minute, though. Whose decision is this? Who should be making those decisions? It's certainly not the grandmother. She's not, well, in my mind anyway, she's
Yeah.
not actually looking at the individuals and the ramifications for each of those individual. I think it's easy, isn't it, for people to say, oh, they shouldn't be doing this, they shouldn't be. But actually, you step inside the shoes of those people. And I think that's the story. That's one of the things I'm taking from this particular storyline. I don't know how it's going to fudge out, but I mean, I think all that is really has been brought very much to the surface, I think, in the storyline. Where would you like to see Chelsea going as a character now, do you think?
Ooh, what a
Maddie?
juicy question. Do you know what? I would love to see her. First of all, I just love to see her have fun and be happy for a bit. Obviously, I want her to thrive, and a salon or two would be great. I'm really interested to see how she behaves when she's in love. Or, romantically. I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's not in her future. But I think it's because I'm a hopeless romantic. So I'm always like, I want her to be in love.
Yes.
But yeah, and just carving out a life for herself. Because I know that for her what's at the core of her, I think, is family and her mother and her brother and now Jazza. And I think whatever happens, she wants to do right by them. I think that's her drive. I might be wrong, but that's what I feel is her drive.
And it strikes me, she's, well, again, me as a listener, but, she is so grateful, I think, isn't she, from the support that she's actually had from her family? Would you say that? That's how it comes across to me.
Yeah, so
but
grateful.
she is such a great character, and I think for the reason that she was very kind of full on, oh, she's out there like that, and that was why, as a listener, it stopped us in our tracks when we got this information about the pregnancy. It was great. And I'll never forget, we had a scene quite early on, you and I,
we did.
where I think you were doing my hair. Do you remember? And you were the first and only character in 22 years that has ever called Lillian Lil. And I'll never forget it. When we did this scene, it was so funny because actually I, as Lillian, is sort of going back, to all the years I've been playing it. I remember thinking, how does Lillian react to this being called Lil?
I know. I have to admit,
it was terribly funny. It was
when I read it, when we get the scripts through the door, when I read it, I just thought, no, she can't. But then inside as well, I was like, yes.
But it's so good. It was so funny, and Lily was challenged, and I mean, she secretly thinks that Chelsea's absolutely all right. She's a girl after her, because Lillian's very much you say it as you see it, and I think
they're very similar.
Admires her. I think so. And what I would love, you see, as a storyline is, Lil with all her money, she'd set up Chelsea, couldn't she, in a little salon or something. That would be a hoot. That would be a hoot, because they would be two interesting characters. But yes, I hope that Chelsea now, she's a very good hairdresser. That is very clear in the program. She's very skilled at what she does.
She is.
So let's hope that that's the future. That's the future.
I hope so.
Can you tell us, because this is Janie's question, right? She's not here.
Yes.
But Janie. She said, how did you get the part of Chelsea in the first place? That's what she wants to know.
How did I get the part? Well, so I it was actually through the most unexpected way, basically. So I was doing a project in lockdown. I was recording some demos for a musical called Reality Bites, which is fab, and it's in talks to be put on somewhere, so that's very exciting. But the lyricist for this musical and part of the writing team was a lovely gentleman called Dave Payne, who I think I don't know what his actual job is, storyliner?
He's a storyliner in the Archers, yes.
Yeah. I didn't know this at the time. And actually, we never met whilst we were working on this project. It was just sort of a name that came at the end of emails. And then he sent me an email basically being like, look, I'm writing in this character. I write for the Archers, and I'm writing in this character. Would you like me to sort of give your name and CV to the team? That is all I could do. But would you be up for it? And I was like, yes, because the Archers has been something that I've wanted to do for so long. And I just was like, right, well, it's probably not in my future. So when this came up, it was very unexpected. So he put my name forward. I was fully expecting not to hear anything. Because he knew I'd done audio, and that's why he kind of, I think he thought of me, but I hadn't really done any radio since leaving drama school. And lucky enough, they invited me in to audition. And yeah, I auditioned with Susie, the incredible Susie Riddell. I was very starstruck. We did a couple of scenes, and actually I also read in for Beth. Casey, which was so funny because in the audition I'd sort of prepared it as Chelsea, did that, and then they were like, right, can you do it again, but with a Birmingham accent? And it was so abominable. It was so offensive to all those wonderful Birmingham people. It was so bad. And with no preparation either. So it was just horrific. So the parts definitely went, Becca Fuller plays the incredible Beth Casey, and it went to the right person.
But yeah, how interesting. I've done that occasionally. You can go for an audition for something, and you've planned one particular accent or something, and then they throw googly at it, don't they? You think, oh, could you do it, Geordie? Oh, not sure about that.
No, well, because you get it in your head, don't you? And you get that, especially with an accent like Chelsea's. It's so, I don't know, I want to say pungent, because it is just so strong, and it's a very specific kind of thing. And then to suddenly change, I mean, some people are incredible at that. I know some people who would be like, yep, fine, do it.
Yes.
And Susie did it in the room because she read in with me. She just switched. She's just phenomenal.
But she's a Brummy gal. She's allowed, you see.
Still though.
So there, I mean, she had something on her side there.
Well, I don't know. But so that was a surprise. But fun and very funny.
Yeah. And so that's great. So another question is, this was again from dear Janie.
Yes.
She said, because you sound so magnificently like mother and daughter, which you do, you and Susie, Tracy. She wants to know, how much research you did on all that. How do you come to do that? She'd like to know.
Yes.
Being a non-actor, she'd like to know. She says.
I would love to answer that. Yeah, a lot of hard work. I wish I could say it came naturally. It doesn't. I had Susie in my ear just constantly, and just trying to just get as much of it as I could. I think now it's interesting because I think now, having Chelsea having gone through what she's gone through, I can now hear more differences in them. But I always try and go back to and use it as a springboard when I feel like I'm losing touch. Because I don't know how you feel, Sunny, but obviously between recording, there's sometimes a bit of a gap. So a couple of weeks or maybe a bit longer. And every block, and this never changes, I go, I've forgotten the voice. I've forgotten the voice. What does she sound like? And I have to go back and listen and but then it depends on what emotion it is or what the vibe of the episodes are. I don't know how you feel about that. But...
No, I think you're so right, and I think I mean, I know with me, because I was given the brief that she was gin swigging, chain smoking character when I first joined, and I'd done enough radio then to think, well, I've only got my voice. How am I going to do this? How can I show this? And I remember trying to sort of find this kind of slightly gravelly sort of thing. So really,
love it.
Like what you're saying, often with scripts, when I'm actually preparing them, I will use that as my sounding, but I will go back to that. And then I can go north, south, east or west vocally, but I actually have to just try and find that aspect of it. It's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, we all find our different cues for the characters. And it will be interesting again, won't it, with Chelsea, whether, because what you've been so clever with her is we found this youthful quality that is with all young people, this kind of, I can't even do the way you do it because you do it so brilliantly, but that as she as she matures, particularly after this particular incident, whether some of that may just kind of drop away, and you find a different sort of. It's not to do with your accent; it's more to do with your attitude. That will be an interesting one, won't it, to see whether there's a maturation eventually as time goes on with that. And that's the joy of it for us as actors, isn't it? Because we've got something to work at all the time.
It's
So
so great.
when you did your audition, though, did you listen a lot before you did your audition? Did you listen a lot to Susie,
Yes.
on the programme?
So
How
much
much time did you have between knowing that you got the audition? Right, okay. Yeah.
I might be wrong, but I seem to remember it was a couple of weeks, or maybe a week and a half, a fair amount of time, because we're so used to getting things and then you're in the next day. But this was a lovely chunk of time to really bed it in and do as much research as possible. I mean, they sent me a little extract, but I was like, well, I want to hear, and I've saved them on my phone, episodes of all the different emotions. So I've got one where she's, I think I've saved on YouTube the episode where her and Jazza are shouting at each other in the cricket pavilion when they're just about to get together, to get that side of her voice. And then there's one when she's with Oliver and she's a bit more upset when she's just broken up with Roman. So I've kind of curated a collection of episodes of all the different emotions that I can bounce back from. But it's, as I said before, now there's been some time. Now she's been in it for a while and gone through some things. I'm finding that's increasingly, it's helpful at times, but she's now got her own clothes, I guess, which are slightly different. So I guess it's like listening to Tracy is like going back home, but then she like puts on a jacket and goes out for a while.
Yes,
and that's
absolutely.
a bit different.
Yeah,
That was a really weird analogy, but
no, it's right. But I know exactly. I get exactly, what you mean. And I mean, I know when you first joined the program, people were saying to me, "Gosh, doesn't that actress who plays Jack, doesn't she sound like her mother?" And I'd be going, "Yes. Well, that's because she's a good actress, darlings." But yeah, because we do only have, don't we, Maddie, as radio actors, all we have is our voice to create a 3-dimensional characters. So you have to really work quite hard about that. So you said you were thrilled to join the Archers. So have you always been a kind of Archers listener or a Radio 4 listener? Did you grow up with all that around you?
I have dipped in and out, but it's always been this sort of underlying constant thing. I mean, my grandmother has been listening since it started. I don't think she's missed an episode. If she has, it's because she was on holiday and then probably caught up with it later. It's her favourite thing. And my parents always had it on in the car or, kind of around and about. So it's always been there. I listened to it more when I went to drama school, and
yes.
you were my teacher. It inspired me so much with radio, but obviously you were in the show, and as was Kim Durham, who played.
He played Matt. He played
Matt.
Tiger.
I keep like Tiger.
Yes.
I was surrounded by people who worked in the Archers.
Yeah.
And so I got back into it then because that's when I really fell in love with radio. And I was like, that's what I want to do, or voice work. That's what I want to do. And so I listened to it a fair amount then so I could hear you.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Turtle Doves. Turtle Doves recycle pre-loved cashmere jumpers to make beautiful accessories. Their best-selling fingerless gloves come in a large variety of colours to brighten or complement any outfit. The benefit of keeping your wrist covered throughout the day will help maintain warm, cosy fingers. Other accessories include neck warmers, loops, scarves, beanies and baby booties, all super soft and luxurious to the touch with great eco-credentials. Turtle Doves, the perfect present this Christmas to keep your loved ones warm. It's really interesting that because, yes, for all the listeners out there, yes, I used to teach radio at Bristol Oak Theatre School where Maddie was a student, and I used to do a lot of the radio workshops, and that was where I met Maddie. And in fact, you were one of our entrants for the Carlton Hobbs Award, which is a Radio 4 awards that happen every year, and all the drama schools that can apply. And Maddie was selected out of, there were 4 of you selected out of all the drama students because she was basically a very good little radio actress, this is for sure.
I loved
but I
it.
do remember saying, yeah, well, and it was great. I mean, the great thing about when you were selected for something like the Carlton Hobbs, I mean, in any drama school, actually, you get so much more focus, don't you, on radio, and so you have a lot more experience and a lot more opportunity to explore the microphone. And we were lucky at Bristol because we have the old BBC radio studios as well there, so that's kind of all set up for it. But yeah, I mean, I do remember at the time thinking, this girl's a bit clever. But yeah, I do remember though often saying to the students when I was working with them, because I was in the Archers as well, but if you want to listen to radio actors with their different techniques and being really good radio actors, listen to the Archers. And sometimes they go, what, Archers? And I would say, yeah, because you've got a lot of actors there who've been in front of a microphone for years and years and years and years. They've all got a slightly different technique. Just listen with a technical ear rather than just listening to the story, and see what they're doing, how they're creating a three-dimensional character for you with their voice. And they've all got a different technique. And I still maintain that. I think if you are a radio student, tuning into the Archers will teach you a huge amount about how to approach a microphone, because we have a very relaxed style on the Archers, which in a way you don't have with any other radio drama. And I think that sort of helps you to just think about rhythms and attitudes as a radio actor and your relationship with the microphone. But yes, you were one of our star pupils, it has to be said. So I was so thrilled when I knew that you were coming into the Archers. I mean, no money exchanged hands. It was nothing to do with me at all, as you say. It was Dave Payne, because you'd been working with him. And I couldn't believe it when you rang and said, listen, I thought, well, that is justice. You know, talent is out. I was just so thrilled. But of course, you've done lots of other things. I mean, you do audio, of course, as well, but a lot of stage stuff. And you've recently done Juliet. You played Juliet, didn't you, in Romeo and Juliet?
Did.
At Stafford.
Yes, I did. I played Juliet, which was again like another dream role for me. I think I auditioned for drama school with I did with the Juliet speech. I was always like, I want to play that part. And as the years went by, I was like, it's not going to happen for me, but that's okay. And then it did. Oh, I loved it. I would do it again.
Because you played Desdemona as well, I think, didn't you, at Stafford?
I did, yes.
Am I right?
Yes, for the same company. Another, fantastic role. I adore Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. And to have the opportunity to do it. And the great thing about Stafford is it's all outdoor. So there's nothing better than speaking that language and talking about the elements in the elements. So, you're saying, the night is coming in or talking about the wind and it's there. But then equally as funny when, you're talking about the sun and it's raining. That happened a lot of times. But that's great because you're there with the audience and you're both sharing this joke that it's clear you're saying one thing and it's another. And I just love that so much. Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, both Desdemona and both Juliet couldn't be more different from Chelsea, of course, could they?
So
in character, I mean, that was one of the things I remember so well about you as well at drama school, your versatility. You are terrifically versatile. But how did doing open air? It's a long time since I've done open air. But how does that affect you vocally? How did you have to look after your voice and so on?
Yeah, so it's very important to look after your voice. We were very lucky in that we did have microphones because it was a very big set, and quite a large audience. And we were on top of a hill. So we had microphones, but you still had to. Everything had to be loud and big and bold and very articulated, very muscular, which is just such good training and practice. I'm a firm believer that even if you've been in the industry for however long, you're still training and you're still working and learning. It is very tough vocally. And I actually remember I was recording the Archers and doing that. And I was like, I was swearing those episodes, my Chelsea voice was probably a little bit deeper than it probably is normally.
Yeah.
but that's part of
And
it.
really, and technically going from the sublime to the ridiculous, because of course you're having to sort of be very big vocally, aren't you, when you're in Stafford, and then
Huge,
coming
yeah.
down to a microphone where you can use very little voice. I mean, it's it's quite interesting that the different techniques that you acquire. But of course, the other thing that you did, you played Sophie, didn't you, in Mamma Mia in the West
I
End for a
did.
while. Now, how did that one come about?
Well, I was first cover Sophie. So well, that one came about. So I went and did a master's at the Royal Academy of Music in musical
Oh,
theatre.
okay.
That was a few years after I left Bristol. I just felt like I was itching to learn more about singing. It's something I'd always done, but I felt kind of a bit green with it, and I wanted to focus on it for a bit. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to see if I can get onto this course and study there. And there was a showcase, and then I was invited in to audition for Mamma Mia, which blew my mind. I just never thought I would be in
Amazing.
something like that. And I was also actually told that that wasn't the kind of thing that people really saw me doing, which I love because I love proving people wrong.
Yes.
So yeah, and then I did the audition on it was really quick. I did the audition on the Thursday, Friday, and then was offered on the Friday and started on the Monday.
Wow.
It was a really quick turnover. Either someone must have dropped out or they couldn't find someone. Yeah, so there was a vacancy and they took me. And yeah, so I played first cover Sophie. So that means when the role of Sophie was played by a beautiful actress called Georgina Castle. She had the role, and then when she was either poorly or on holiday, then I would step in and play the role. And yeah, I had lots of opportunities to do that, and oh, it was just wonderful.
And Janie asks, this is if she was here, she'd be asking this. She says, how was it to go on in such a big part? She said, first time.
Scary. No, it was it was quite overwhelming because it's always I have lots of dreams. It's always been a dream of mine to play a lead in the West End, and it was happening.
How much notice were you given, Maddie? I mean, was it one of those things like, you were at the theatre at the half and she couldn't sing, or did you have plenty of notice before you actually went on?
It depends. It depends. Like sometimes I knew because it was holiday and it was booked, so I knew in advance that's when I would be on. But sometimes there would be last minute things. But you kind of have, if you're a cover or you play the role, you kind of can have an agreement where you tell them when you know, and or there was once when I had to go on halfway through the show, so I had to end the second half. Just, she'd done all of that work and then something happened and then I had to go on and finish it.
Bless.
And I remember it being so it was, you can literally be thrown on, and they were quickly doing my hair and quickly going to get my costume out the cupboard, and had to swap, because when I wasn't covering, I was in the ensemble dancing, believe it or not.
I do believe it. I do.
Oh no, I'm not a confident dancer, but I had to pretend to be.
I've seen you in pantomime. I know you're a good dancer. Anyway, continuing on.
Okay.
Gosh, that was very late. But that was really late then, wasn't it?
But it happens. It happens all the time in these shows. These shows are like running a marathon. They are wonderful, but it's a lot, and you really have to look after yourself. But that's why we have covers and understudies and stuff. They're amazing, because a lot of the time they have no notice and have to jump on. And because I don't know about you, how you prepare for what role you're playing, but I know when I know I'm playing the main, a bigger part, my getting ready and psyching myself up for the show is different when I'm not. So I don't know how about you and how your process is, but
no, it absolutely is. I mean, you do. I guess the thing is, Maddie, when you're in that sort of situation, like, she's done 3/4 of the show and suddenly they say you're on, in a way, you don't have time to think, do you? You don't have time to panic. You don't have time. You just have to sort of just get on with it, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Just have to put the blinkers on and just go, right, okay. But I mean,
would you like to do more musicals? Would you like to do more of those big kind of musicals?
Say no. No, I mean, thing is, any opportunity to do anything. No, I do love it. I love it. It's hard work and it's tough on your voice and vocally because you really have to look after yourself. But it's another form of telling a story, and I love music. I love music. So if I can incorporate some songs and some music somehow into the telling of a story, bring it.
Well,
I love it.
well, maybe Chelsea. Maybe that's a sideline. Maybe that's going to be a sideline for Chelsea. You never know. She could be busking about somewhere. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? That
She
would be
can enter
quite
the
fun.
X Factor. Well, that doesn't run anymore, does it?
But one of the things that I always wanted to ask you was because I know that your mum is French and your dad is English, and so I guess, and Janie wanted to know this as well. So obviously it was you're bilingual, and we wondered what it was like at home when you were growing up. I mean, did you sort of speak in French at home, and then when you went outside speak English, or how did it work?
Pretty much, you hit the nail on the head there.
Really?
Yeah. Well, so now I would say, sadly, I'm probably not bilingual completely. I'm definitely fluent, but I'm very rusty in some areas because I just don't speak it as much, which is terrible. But there's just not the opportunity. But I remember when I was a kid, yes, it was very much when we were young. My mum was like, you speak French at home, and then you speak English everywhere else, but you will speak French at home. And I remember going to 2 different schools at one point. So I'd go to an English school, and then a couple of nights a week, or maybe more, I'd go to a French school. So it was like both. Yeah, so I forget that is a big part of my identity, actually.
Yes, it is. And then do you? One question I wanted to ask you: what do you think in? Do you think in French or English or both?
I wish I could say I thought in French, but I don't. I think now I definitely think in English. I think maybe when I was younger, when I was speaking French, I'd think in French, and when I was speaking English, I'd think in English. But I can't really remember.
No, it's just an interesting one, isn't it? I do remember many years ago now being in Switzerland, and I remember that I was on a train, and there were a couple of very young children, and they were obviously bilingual, English and French, and there was a sentence was constructed from both English and French. I'll never forget that. It was a split sentence, so part of it would start in French, the other would, and I was absolutely fascinated because that's what made me think, gosh, what's their brain doing here? What are they thinking in? It was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Did you do the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And my friends at the time, we went on this trip to France when I was in year 7, so I was 12, and I remember phoning home, and I was like, "Ce soir on a mangé chicken and chips," and my friends were like, "What are you doing?" Because it's split sentences.
It's brilliant.
It is. I totally understand that.
Yeah, it's just great. It's just brilliant. Oh dear. Right, now moving on, something slightly different, because the other thing that you're doing at the minute is you're going to be a judge on Radio 4's All in the Mind, aren't you? For this is Radio 4 for the awards in 2013. Can you tell us about the awards, Maddie, and then also tell us how you came to be involved?
I would love to tell you about this because it is just so wonderful. So All in the Mind, I hope I'm saying this right. All in the Mind is a program on Radio 4. It's usually on a Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. and I think repeated on a Wednesday. And it's presented by the incredible Claudia Hammond. And it's a program about mental health. I love this program so much because it interviews sort of people in science, people who work in psychology, all about all the different topics. And mental health is so important, and it's so important to talk about it. And this program does do that and explores some very difficult things and things that affect our everyday lives. And part of the program is that every year they will present the All in the Mind Awards, which is where you can nominate there's 3 categories. So there's an individual category, a professional category, and then a group or project category, where you can nominate someone who has helped you at a moment with your mental health or supported you throughout a difficult time. And this is just such a wonderful opportunity. Because, just to sort of, talk about these things and to celebrate kindness. I think that that's the main message. Yeah.
And so, how? What the listeners need to know is, how did you become involved in this in the first place? Why were you asked to be a judge?
Well,
Come on,
I
don't
want to
hide your light behind a bushel. Tell us, tell us.
Well, first of all, through the Archers, but also because I was nominated in 2018 by a friend of mine. I'm only being a bit sheepish about it because, and I know apparently everyone says this, but I really, really don't feel like I did anything. But I was so lucky to have been, nominated by my wonderful best friend in the world, Steph. And
why? And why did she? Why did she nominate? What was it that you were doing? What was it that you were giving to her that meant so much to her? Because I think that's useful for just because you mentioned kindness just then, and I think it's good for us to share maybe how we can help other people. So what was it that you did?
Well, I think this is what I learned from the whole experience, is that anything we can do to help other people is great. And sometimes it's the smallest little things that you don't even think are helping are the things that help. So for me and Steph, and I have to say she does the same for me, so it's definitely not one way, is just checking in, just a little text or a phone call or a visit, just to say, hey, how you doing? Are you all right? Or not even that. It doesn't have to even be like a searching thing. But just to know that they're being thought about. And I know that I've been on the other end of it too, where people have checked in with me and I've gone, oh, someone cares. So it's from that angle. And I think that it's important to remember when someone pops into your head and you're like, oh, I wonder how they are. And I do this all the time and go, oh, I'll text them later. I'll text them another time when I'm free. And then obviously that time never comes because life is busy. Just stop and take the moment to just write them a message. Or, go and see them if you can. But it can be the littlest thing. And I'm really grateful to that opportunity because I've learnt that. And now I really try and live my life like that. Yeah.
And did with your lovely friend Steph, I mean, were you mindful that maybe that she was going through tough times, or was it just that you felt, no, I just need to keep checking in with her? Were you mindful that she had issues?
I knew that she was going through difficult times with an event so big. How can you not? So basically, her father was killed by a drunk driver in a car accident. That she was in the car, and her sisters were as well. But they survived, and he passed away. So how do you ever get over that? You don't. But I suppose, I mean, first of all, I wanted to get in touch with her, so I wanted to talk to her. And even if I didn't hear back from her, it didn't matter. I just wanted to know we were connected. I think it's so important, human connection, especially, I mean, with everything that everyone's gone through. I mean, I think it's so important. And then it's just patience.
It's checking in. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. And it's checking in, as you say, isn't it? I mean, next door neighbour, or maybe somebody who lives on their own. I mean, just that thing of thinking, or just check in, just say hello, or just pop something through the letterbox. And you don't know how much that could mean and change the day for that person.
Yeah.
It's just being mindful, isn't it? And mental health now is well, it's always been so important, but I think it's really coming to the forefront so much more. And I think this is why the All in the Mind awards are absolutely fantastic. And well done you. And also that whatever you did for Steph, which was just checking in with her all the time, even if she couldn't say to you, this is great at the time, she might have done, I don't know, but thanks, Maddie, it was really having a positive effect. So for us, as friends, even if we think we're not getting feedback from someone, you don't know the good that you're actually doing, because they may not be in a space where they can say to you at that time, thank you very much, because they may be, somewhere else. And that's really important, isn't it?
That's such a good point.
So,
yeah.
well, you just don't know. But well done you. And that is one of the reasons, of course, why you are the a judge, which is just great. Now we're almost near the end of this lovely chat. It's been so lovely. I can't tell
that's
you.
flown by.
One last question, which is, I know it has. I know we don't know it has. One last question, which, as you know, we always ask our guests is, and you're very young anyway, but you said no. Let's go with this, Sonny. What would you say, Maddie, to your younger self?
I would say, well, I actually got two things, and of course, I haven't worked these out yet. I don't practice what I preach, but I strive to in the future. But I've got two things. I think they're probably the same, really, but. I think it's like, be yourself who you want to be, not what other people tell you should be. I think is a big one I would want to tell my younger self. And also, don't let fear of failure stop you from growing. Like, things don't have to be perfect all the time, because I am such a perfectionist to my detriment a lot of the time. Nothing is ever good enough. And I think that if you stop thinking like that and you're prepared to make the mistakes, it opens up a whole world of wonderful. So those are my things, I think.
No, I think that's great, and I think we can all relate to that. It's sort of like, feel the fear and do it anyway, isn't it? Don't let that fear stop you from having a go and doing stuff. I think we can all relate to that, because if you don't, if you're backward and coming forward, you're always going to stay to the same spot, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? So You've just got to challenge yourself.
Take risks.
Great. Take risks, because you never know. Even if it feels so scary and you feel you're going to drop off a precipice, it's better to take that step, because you just never know where it will lead to. And sometimes you fail in things, but oftentimes you don't, and it can lead to other experiences.
Well, failures are gains in themselves.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. I'm going to write that one down. Failures are gains in themselves. That's my girl.
That's a Maddie special.
That's a Maddie special. That's going down in my diary, love. Going to the top of every page. Thank you so much, Maddie. I can't tell you what a pleasure it has been for me personally today, because, as I say, when you're a radio tutor or a tutor of any kind and you spot someone who's got immense talent, you just keep your fingers crossed that the universe is going to be kind to them and are going to allow them to shine. And that is what has happened with you. And it's been such a joy to share a microphone professionally, I tell you, with you. It really, really has. And let's hope that there are going to be many more wonderful, which there will be, storylines for Chelsea. And I look so forward to watching her develop over the years. And maybe, Maddie, you might come back and see Janie and I when you have done the judging for the winners of All in the Mind next year, and come and chat to us about those particular winners. And that way, Janie will get to meet you and you'll get to meet Janie, and she will be so thrilled. I can't tell you. But thank you so much for being on the podcast. Would you? Oh, that would be great.
Yeah, I'd love
to.
Please
do. All right. Lots of love.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been lovely. And look, all you lovely listeners out there, if you want to nominate someone for the All in the Mind Awards for 2023, the closing date is the 31st of January 2023. You just go to All in the Mind website, and there you'll find more info about the awards and also an application form. But last but not least, I have to say, get well soon, dear Janie, my chum. I've missed you so much today, I can't tell you. And all of you lovely listeners out there, please go very well. Bye. Thanks for listening to our One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. If you'd like to see behind-the-scenes clips and bonus content, please visit our Facebook page, One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. And if you'd like to ask any questions, follow us on Twitter at OneStiletto65. This podcast is produced by Raggedy House Productions, and the music composed by Tom Smith. See you next time!